Impressionism. So where did the term Impressionism come from? This term first came when describing this painting by Monet, and a critic said, it is nothing but a mere impression, meaning it's not even painting this full scene. It's just an impression of it. So it was first used as an insult, and then the Impressionists took that as their title. They liked that. This painting by Monet, remember, he's a bridge artist. He's realism, and he's also bridging into Impressionism, mainly because of the style, the way he's painting. So this caused a real big scandal. This is a scandalous painting, right? This is a nude woman with all of these clothed men. So there's something going on here. And this was rejected by the Academy of Arts. So because this was rejected and because people were saying it was so scandalous, everybody wanted to see it. So there was a revolution in the art world because of this. Excuse me. So Napoleon III opened a salon of the refused, where all of the artworks that are being rejected are now being shown. So the public is now wanting to see these artworks. So again, it's being refused by the Academy of the Arts, and they're creating, and then Napoleon is creating a salon of the refused, right? So now we can go see these Degas paintings. We can go see Monet paintings. These are all by Degas. All right, so paintings of this era are characterized by what, right? How can you look at Impressionism painting and then know it is Impressionism? So again, with that Monet, that Impression Sunrise, the first one, it's really catching a scene at a glance. It's kind of just an idea, a mere impression of a scene. Very short brushstrokes with really thick paint. That's called impasto, where the paint is like really thick and coming off of the canvas. So that's the brushstrokes. The color, it's typically vibrant, saturated colors going side by side. In this middle painting of a woman in a bar drinking absinthe by Degas, that's not saturated, right? That's more muted, more dull colors, kind of like Stonebreakers from Realism by Courbet. But typically you're seeing really bright, saturated colors. Up close, you see the brushstrokes. From a distance, they're going to blend together. And then these artists, a lot of them, not Degas, he's inside, but a lot of these artists are outside painting in plein air. That means they have an easel and they have their canvas and they're outside and they're painting. Because of this, a lot of these paintings are smaller than larger paintings we've seen before. All right, some concepts with Impressionism. We've already talked about avant-garde, but if you don't have it, avant-garde refers to artists who lead the way with bold concepts. That term comes from a military term. And then Japanism, we're going to read an article about that, or Japanisme. All right, so I have this worksheet for you guys to kind of tell these three artists apart. Again, Monet kind of bridges between realism. So he's connected to realism, and he's really depicting the seamier side of city life. The colors, cold and harsh. He's using a lot of contrast, a lot of dark against lights. His style, simplified forms, minimal shading, right? No chiaroscuro being used. Flat color patches outlined in black. And his inspiration is just modern life. So now we're going to look at Monet. So the Monet painting we have is the Saint Lazare Station. You can call him Claude Monet or just Monet, 1877. And this is oil on canvas. Hang on. All right, so really, what is Monet known for? When you think of a Monet painting, a lot of people typically think of his water lilies. Now, these are really large. I said a lot of Impressionism paintings are small. These are an exception. These are really quite large. And there's actually 3 of them that go together. There's a whole series of these. If you go to the Nelson, we have 1 of them. All right, so if he's known for that, if he's really known for these water lilies, why is College Board choosing this one? Right? Also, how is this characteristic of Impressionism? So what it's depicting, it's the time, right? Focus is on the rapidly changing modern world. You have these trains coming in, you have all these people standing around. So this is one in a series of more than a dozen of this same subject matter. Right? So you have the hustle and the bustle of the city, the itty gritty dirtiness of it. The colors reflect this. All right, so he's not painting a pretty place, right? He's more known for his water lilies. That's really pretty. This is more of a beautiful expression of the modern gritty ickiness of the day. It's almost like realism, depicting what he's seeing, but the style is impressionistic. So it's depicting this modernism, this industrial revolution. So he'd been living in a suburb in Paris, and he would have traveled by train into the city. So this is a daily part of Parisian life, is traveling by train. Very modern idea. All right, so the function, this is what he's doing in all of his work. He is really interested in showing the fleeting effects of light and the changing of the colors and what we see. So he's doing this by painting the same subject matter over and over again, but different times of the day. So we can see this in his haystacks. You can see this in paintings of a cathedral and in the train station. Again, these artworks are all being rejected by the Salon. So Impressionists mounted their own exhibition called the Salon of the Refused. This painting was made just a few years after the first French Impressionist exhibition. All right, so this is the characteristics of the brush strokes that I was telling you guys about. So really short brush strokes with thick paint, right? If you're up close, you really just see the brush strokes. Vibrant saturated colors side by side. Up close, you're seeing the strokes. From a distance, they're blending together. So here's some of Monet's water lilies, right? But then from far away, you can see a whole scene. All right, I really love this quote about Impressionism. So when you're teaching someone how to paint, this is what I try to teach. So try to forget what objects you have before you. Don't think about a tree, a house, a field, or whatever. Merely think, here's a little square of blue. Here's an oblong pink. Here's a streak of yellow, and paint it just as it looks to you. So this is a really helpful thing to think about as an artist, right? Don't think about painting a hand or a face. Look at the lines and the colors and the shapes. And then when I taught this, this was an example of looking at the shapes, right? The shape of the negative space, trying to paint that shape, trying to capture the lines and the colors. All right, back to Monet. He's got a lot. There he is. All right, he's painting en plein air. Typically works are going to be smaller because of this. And these are his cathedrals. So there's over 30 canvases that Monet made of Rouen Cathedral. He actually rented a space across from the cathedral and continuously painted the same cathedral, showing the different effects of light. He would have different canvases going on at the same time, one for a different moment of the day to show the different effects of light. So his artwork is about light and the way light constructs form. I think that's amazing. I don't know how many canvases he'd have going on at once, but the light would change, right, as time went on, and then he would start working on the next one. And then that light would change as the sun would move, and he'd start working on the next one. All right, so what can we add about Monet? His subject matter, his content. He's painting landscapes, water, cathedrals, haystacks, train stations. Really, no, not a lot of figural work, more scenes. Colors, he's putting pure colors side by side. He's not blending them. Style, dissolved form of subject into light and atmosphere, soft edges, really classic impressionistic look. And then his inspiration is the effect of light changing over time. All right. The Coiffure by Mary Cassatt. You don't have to include her first name, but since she is a female artist, by including that first name, it would help remember that she's a female. So this is going to be one of a series of prints. It's dry point and aqua tint on paper. So I have this article for you printed in your notes. So we're going to read this article together because her work is really inspired by Japanese prints, like The Wave by Hakusai. All right, so I told you guys that a big concept with Impressionism is Japanisme. So we're going to read this. So Japanese art has long been a source of fascination and inspiration for Western artists. From the 17th century onwards, Dutch imports of East Asian objects created a frenzy among the wealthy Europeans for exotic silks, ceramics, and other treasures. The Dutch had an exclusive trade agreement with Japan during this period, but when American Commodore Matthew Perry, I think it's an actor also, entered Edo Bay with warships in 1853, he forced an end to the country's 250 years of near isolation, fully opening it up to trade with the West. So I've got some context that you guys can add about what we just read. So here's a very typical example, right? So an influx of Japanese art, textiles, and other objects quickly flooded the US and Europe. At the 1867 World's Fair in Paris, Japan exhibited a wide range of decorative objects and art, including bronzes, brush paintings, textile ceramics, and this popular ukiyo-e woodblock prints. In attendance was an emerging group of avant-garde artists, soon to be known as the Impressionists. All right, so relating to art, the most significant import from Japan were these woodblock prints, ukiyo-e. Ukiyo-e means the floating world, emphasizing these fleeting moments, kind of snapshots of Japanese culture. All right, so these artists were awed by what they saw. They took special note of the ukiyo-e prints, which many of them voraciously collected. The motifs and techniques they observed in the prints, a focus on nature and everyday scenes, as well as compositional methods of extreme cropping, unusual vantage points, and depth created through broad planes of color instead of point perspective or linear perspective, greatly influenced their own work. By 1872, a new term was coined to describe this craze for all things Japanese, Japanism. I love this Van Gogh painting. So he's actually painting his art collector, his art dealer with all of these Japanese artworks behind him. All right, so the French created this word. Cassatt visited this show, right, at least twice and was enthralled with the ukiyo-e prints. So following this event, because of seeing the show, she decided to create a series of 10 prints showing the life of modern day women. And then I have also this article printed for you guys. So she's a figurative painter. She's exhibiting her work at the salons, which means it is approved by the Academy. And her work caught the attention of Degas. Degas is the ballerina painter. He's not in our 250, but he's an important impressionistic painter. He invites her to participate in the Impressionist exhibitions. So this is what her paintings typically look like. This one's my favorite. All right, so she's known for extraordinarily sensitive representatives of women with children, kind of this domestic and social life of bourgeois women, kind of this upper middle class. She is born in Pennsylvania, so we have an American artist, and she moves to Europe to study art and be an artist. So American artist Mary Cassatt, best known for unsentimental depictions of mothers and children, was like Van Gogh, an impressionist deeply inspired by the flat planes and simple lines of ukiyo-e. Unlike Van Gogh, an 1890 exhibition of Japanese woodcuts in Paris inspired her to experiment with printmaking techniques like aquatint, dry point, etching, and hand coloring. So Van Gogh, when he sees ukiyo-e artwork, he's actually copying it. So up here is an example of an ukiyo-e print and then a Van Gogh painting. Mary Cassatt is creating prints. So she's not creating paintings of these prints. She's creating her own prints after being inspired by it. Her resulting series of 10 prints combines the elegant beauty of Japanese woodcuts with Cassatt's trademark intimacy, offering a window into 19th century women's private lives. The Bath, Cassatt's first stab at the medium, for which she produced 17 different editions, is inspired both in subject and style by Japanese art. The prevailing maternal themes of Cassatt's work found a counterpoint in ukiyo-e with its preponderance of examples featuring the everyday lives of all kinds of women, courtesans, mothers with children, and young girls. We observe this tender scene of a mother bathing her child from a slightly higher than usual vantage point, and the pair is rendered flatly with clear black outlines and minimal shadows, a sense of depth created by the layers of colors. So let's compare our artwork, the coiffure, with an ukiyo-e print of a woman, right? What similarities are we seeing here? So we're seeing a nude female on the right, unaware of being observed in a mirror reflection. So both of them have a mirror reflection. Both of them kind of have their back turned to the viewer. So she's breaking away from this traditional depiction of the female nude, right? We've seen a lot of reclining, sensual female nudes. This is a female nude, but she's de-eroticized. She's not seen as a sexual object. She's doing her hair in her room. So this is a glimpse into a normal, everyday scene in a woman's life. All right, you have the curves of the woman's back. Her breasts, her knees all echo the curves of the chair, and they contrast with the straight lines of the mirror. So you have the curves, and then you have the straight lines. Muted and limited color palette of rose, brown, and white. So that's a good vocabulary term, is a limited color palette. Okay, again, we can compare a lot of similarities here. All right, so her colors kind of mimic the quality of pastels. Her prints are very linear. The color is very flat. So no chiaroscuro or modeling going on and creating the forms. Cropped edges and unusual angle of her paintings and prints make the viewer feel like a witness to the intimate and tender moments, just like in the ukiyo-e prints. Another comparison, ukiyo-e prints are typically wood blocks. Her prints are made with dry point and aqua tint. So these are etchings. All right, why would someone do printmaking over painting? Who knows? Because it's accessible. So she wanted her art to be accessible and affordable to the public. This is a big reason for doing printmaking. To make more than one, you could sell them cheap. All right, so what is she depicting? Intimate domestic scenes, lots with mother and child. If you see an artwork with a mother and a child, you can probably attribute it to Mary Cassatt. Her colors, very pastel-like, soft muted pastels. Style, impressionistic looking paintings and prints with flat shapes of color and close crop space. And she is inspired by ukiyo-e prints. All right. One more artist after this. Oh yeah, I've got this guy. All right, so I thought this was funny. So you got Italy, all these artists, and then you've got America, and we're just kind of known for Bob Ross, but we do have some great American artists. So we just learned about one of them. Hooray. All right, this one is next. I'm going to put this in a separate video.